Alright, happy Memorial Day. Today I'm ready to plant all my seeds and get some of my plants in. But first I needed to come down here to the garden. Some of the rye, whether it was hard seed that just sprouted or what it was, but there was some rye growing in the garden. It's about nothing like the first time. It was about more like hair on a teenager's face. So I took the weed whacker and cut all that down. And today, now I'm just going to show you how easy it is just to kind of scrape away the mulch and scratch the first layer of dirt. And that's all that it takes to really prepare the seed bed for me to lay the seed. Well, here's how it goes. I'm just going to take my rake and I'm just going to kind of scratch away this first level. I'm going to pull it right into my row, which is about right here. And so I have this first scratched off level of kind of loosened dirt. So I'm just going to come over here. I'm just going to scratch it, agitate it just a little bit more. Careful not to disturb too much that's under there, but just kind of breaking it up so that there's a good seed bed for the seeds. Just a good dirt to seed contact. That's all I want here. When I'm done, I'm just gonna plop the seeds right down in here and then cover it up with dirt. And that's how it's gonna work. All right, I'll keep showing you progress. That way you can continue to see how things are growing, and hopefully I get good bounty. Just showing you, got everything planted in the garden. Wanted you to see where it's all at and how it looks after it's done. And so as you can see, as you can kind of see, it's not the cleanest looking thing, but it looks nice. I think it looks nice, at least. Right down the center here I have a row that I can walk through, and then to the right of those are a bunch of rows. So I got 10 rows going down of vegetables, and then on the left I got 10 or so rows going down of vegetables as well. Underneath over here I have these two hoops. On each side of the hoops I have a line of squash that'll grow up these hoops, and underneath, I'll show you over here, I have peppers that are planted in. You can see a couple peppers that I planted right there. And so I'm able to, with the vertical gardening, I'm able to bring everything up over top and still get stuff planted underneath. So over on this side I have my 2 rows planted here, and with the same thing I have some peppers that are planted underneath here as well. And you can also see how those rows over across the other side of veggies are growing. And so you got those in there. And then down here, again, I got another row of squash that'll come up and grow over. At the front side here of the big hoop, I have my cucumbers growing. And so the cucumbers will train them to grow up this arbor, and everything will hang down off the side of the arbor and off the top of the arbor. And then as well, I was able to plant some peppers underneath, kept them well spaced out, and had some garlic growing in there on the back side since last year, the fall of last year. And then in the back side of the garden I have all my tomatoes planted, and so all the tomatoes go all the way across the back side of the garden. And the tomatoes, what I'll do is I'll single stem or double stem them and lead them all the way up the fencing as well. That way they're planted pretty close together, so I don't want to let them get too bushy. I just want to let them grow up, and I'll let them single stem up and I'll pinch off all the suckers. Along the back side where the cucumbers are going to be growing, right up in here, you can see the beans starting to sprout in there. Let's go to the beans right here. And so I have some beans that'll start to sprout, and they're all coming up the back of the fence line. And so I'll have those mixed with the cucumbers growing up the fence line. So I'll have beans and cucumbers picking off of there. And there's the row of the cucumbers, and then here we are back at the beginning. So I just wanted to kind of show how everything looks after it's planted. And so we have a nice row of mulch in between all the rows of vegetables. That way keep all the weeds down, keep everything suppressed. That way the only thing I'm growing is vegetables, not weeds. Everything looks good. I'm excited to see how it'll do. I'll show you the progress as things start to grow up and become strong. Alright everybody, it's July 2nd. a month after I planted all the seeds, so now I just wanted to kind of give a breakdown of how everything's looking, how it's all growing, some of the slow things that are coming along, and some of the great things that are coming along. So as we can see, the rye has continued to create a weed barrier through the garden, so all my paths are looking pretty clean. I have had to go through and just do a minimal amount of weeding, but compared to other years, it's been, I come down here looking to do a lot of maintenance, and there's really not too much I have to do. And so over here on the left, I have zucchinis, and then in between each row of zucchinis and squash, I put in a row of nasturtiums. Nasturtiums are supposed to be a real good companion plant for all the squashes and nasturtiums, and so what they do is they'll cover the grounds, they'll kind of vine out around the grounds, and they'll also produce these little colorful flowers, and you can eat the flowers as like a pepper substitute because they get a nice spice flavor to them. And you can also, in a lot of higher end restaurants, they put those flowers in their salads for their greens. And so my squashes and everything, they're looking real strong, looking real good. And then over on the right side of this main path is where I had the radishes. I had the radishes down in here. And I still have quite a few radishes in there. A couple of types of radishes haven't quite gotten ready yet, but some of the white hailstone radishes and the red radishes, they have gotten ready real fast, and they've been great eating, especially the white ones. And then up here we had the red leaf lettuce, you can see right in there. And then ahead of this was a bunch of buckwheat and some other things that we planted that just never came up. And so what I did is I threw down some zinnias seeds and some buckwheat, planted some more radishes, and cilantro did come up, so cilantro's in there, so now it looks pretty good. On the right here where I had the squashes, the blue Guatemalan squashes up here in the front, it's massive, it's growing exactly how I want it to. The one down here is actually trailing down. I figure there's not going to be much going down here in the garden, so I'm just going to let it run along the ground. All these ones, they're all going to run along the top. As you can see, their headers, I keep kind of swinging them around the fencing. That way they continue to grow up. But the squash is doing great. Underneath where I had the peppers are looking good, especially up at the front area here. Peppers are looking nice. I had some pumpkins and some other type of squash and some cantaloupe in here. And then underneath here I also had some more peppers. And then I believe these were the pumpkins right here. And so the pumpkins are looking real good. The other plants are looking good. Across here you can, in between all the rows of radishes, I've now gotten my second planting ready of green manure and cover cropping. And so in between all the rows I planted some Biomaster peas, that way they can grow up and add a lot of nitrogen to the ground. And I also planted some crimson clover right over top of them, so that hopefully both of those, the Biomaster peas will start to grow up real tall, and the crimson clover will stay along the ground and grow. I'm just kind of testing it out. Then behind here, on the big arbor here, we have all the cucumbers growing up. And then we also have all the beans that are growing up tall along it. So the cucumbers aren't real tall yet, but you can see them down there with their leaves. They're starting to make it up to about the third row, some of them, of the fencing there. So they're starting to come along. They're growing real good. And then underneath we have the other row of peppers. Because sometimes when a sprinkler is not on, I haven't had to water much and we've had a lot of hot weather, but when I do have the sprinkler on, I noticed that down here it wasn't getting as wet as everywhere else, and so I did place a soaker hose through here. That way I can just set it up, walk away for about 10-15 minutes, come back, turn it off, and everything's all nice and soaked. And so it's starting to look neat with everything growing up along the top. Along the back here I have my tomatoes. My tomatoes on this side, this is the shadiest side of the garden. They're not looking real strong yet. As you can see, the further we go down that way to where they get more sun, it seems like they're growing a whole lot better. But the garden's coming along. It's nice, not had to pull any weeds. Not any weeds, but haven't had to pull a lot of weeds. The peppers back underneath this hoop house aren't doing as strong as the other peppers under the smaller hoops, but we'll give them some time. I don't know if it's just because they're among too many leaves or how that is. All the tomatoes are growing up single stem or double stem, making it look nice. But it's a nice looking garden. I enjoy coming down here. I always enjoy coming and working in the garden, but like I've said, in years past I've come down here and spent hours out here weeding. I've not even spent 1 hour weeding down here. Oh, that's my beautiful family up there with my wife and my daughter. And so it's been very pleasant not having to weed. There's some things that I do need to touch up just along the garden, just where the fence line meets. I want to kind of clean up the grass that's along it where I installed the fence. There's the back side of all the zucchinis and squashes looking good, and all the hoops looking good. So I'm excited. We'll see how it comes to look here July 15th. I'll do another update, and then at the end of the month I'll do another one. I'll try to post another video at the end of July. Alright, hope this is encouraging some people to do it, because everything in my opinion is looking great, especially in years past. This is looking great. I enjoy it. It's been fun. Talk to you later. Bye.